Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Grenada observes 39 years since the US-led military intervention on October 25, 1983. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Tuesday, 25th October 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. Grenada observes 39 years of the US-led military intervention that sought to put peace in the Spice Isle after a revolutionary junta ousted the revolutionary Prime Minister Maurice Bishop and his cabinet sympathizers, executing them against a wall at then Fort Rupert, subsequently renamed Fort George, which was written toward greater discipline within the People's Revolutionary Army. Over the years, no effort has been made by any post-revolutionary administration to teach this as part of the history syllabus in schools. It is hoped that with a change as a result of the June 23, 2022 general election, the NDC administration of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, who seemed to have taken a soft stance against anything revolutionary by way of memory, would seek to change that. Plans seem afoot to observe October 19th as a public holiday in context of a National Heroes Day. No details have been forthcoming as to whether both days of historical significance will continue to be observed or if they will be consolidated. One thing for sure, the nation's youth are about to learn about that which they had been missing out on for the last 40 years, thus making them a lot more aware of our nation's history in context of the gains of the revolution. On a day like today, wreaths are laid at both St. George's University in memory of the 19 U.S. servicemen who lost their lives in the battle between October 25th and 30th, 1983, along with a church service to give thanks. In other news, Youth for Success project in Antigua and Barbuda and other OECS countries receive a much-needed fillip from USAID. Ursula Charles of ABS News reports.
Antigua, Barbuda, and the rest of the OECS have been granted US $5.3 million by the United States government through the United States Agency for International Development, that's USAID. The funds are intended for the implementation of opportunities to advance and support Youth for Success, that's the OASIS project, in the Eastern Caribbean over the next 4 years. The project aims to reduce crime and violence rates among young people across the Eastern Caribbean. Locally, the portion of the funds allotted will focus on strengthening the youth justice system in this country. OASIS will specifically strengthen existing and invest in new programs that provide skills development, psychosocial support, and family interventions for young people in conflict with the law. According to acting USAID and ESC regional representative David Billings, the United States is committed to working with the OECS, national governments, civil society organizations, the private sector, and most importantly, young people and their communities to provide opportunities for young people to succeed. Well, on behalf of the region, Dr. Carleen Radix, head of the Human and Social Division for the OECS, says, quote, the OECS and USAID Youth Justice Project expands on earlier initiatives which contributed to the transformation of the child justice landscape and allows for the strengthening of implementation in the spirit of existing legislation and with collaboration of the community.
The OECS Supreme Court Family Division module of the e-litigation portal launched in Antigua and Barbuda, the first territory for such to be introduced. Ursula Charles again reports.
Some 2 years after the portal was launched for High Court and Appellate Court matters, it is now the Family Division's turn. Acting Prime Minister and Attorney General, the Honourable Stelroy Benjamin, is proud the portal is being launched here first. He hails the trailblazing efforts of the sub-region.
We in Antigua and Barbuda have court division. We in Antigua and Barbuda will live the dream of this visionary, inspirational, and transformational leader to make the OECS a model for all to follow.
Magistrate of the Family Court, Magistrate Veronica Thomas, hails the benefits the portal will bring.
No more paper files. Electronic filing and management of cases means that no paper file is needed. Talk about killing two birds with one stone. E-litigation with one stroke has eliminated issues of storage, lost or missing files, costs associated with producing bundles and bundles of documents for filing, not to mention saving forest trees.
Chief Justice Dame Janice Pereira was at Thursday's launch. She says the launch of the portal makes it clear the judiciary is about service, accountability, and transparency.
I have been on a mission, basically to use as much of internet communication technology to enable our court systems to become more efficient, more accountable. What we do in courts, it's a service. It's a service to the people. And we must always be looking, despite the challenges, and I say challenges because challenges breed opportunities that we may not have thought about. So what we seek to do is always looking at how can we give better service to the people that we serve.
A few legal practitioners and other stakeholders have been trained to use the portal. Those practitioners who are not yet registered on the ECSC portal are being encouraged to not only register, but to also make payments to place funds into their firm's escrow account. Modules for criminal and civil matters are expected to come on stream in the portal in June of 2024. For ABS News, I'm Ursula Charles Jr.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. The Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago says it's absolutely essential that the Attorney General Reginald Amor break his silence on a list of matters it says are relevant to the Vincent Nelson matter. The association wants the AG to issue a full and unambiguous statement. Joel Brown of TV6 News has that story.
In breaking in silence on the collapse of the state's case against the senior counsel and former Attorney General Adoniram Logan and former Opposition Senator Gerald Ramdeen due to an alleged breach of an indemnity agreement between the state and King's Counsel Vincent Nelson, the Law Association said on Friday that the Attorney General can lawfully receive information with regard to criminal activities from any source. However, the Law Association said that in its respectable view, the Attorney General should say whether there was any participation or involvement by the former Attorney General in the actual collection of evidence for the purposes of prosecution. The Law Association said it cannot ignore the fact that the absence of the witness from the prosecutorial process appears to have been connected with an indemnity agreement which he entered to with the former Attorney General, Mr. Faris Al-Rawi, in 2017, and it appears that the purported breach of this indemnity agreement led principally to the discontinuance of the criminal proceedings. The Law Association said the signing of an indemnity agreement in 2017 was highly unusual and made more worrying because it appears that Mr. Nelson continued to be the recipient of financial benefits from the government of Trinidad and Tobago after it was signed. The Law Association also said that, moreover, the alleged agreement appears to contemplate additional benefits for the proposed witness. The Law Association said it is absolutely essential that Attorney General Reginald Amor, in his role as the guardian of the public interest, break his silence and issue a full and unambiguous statement on these matters, including whether in procuring the indemnity agreement, the former Attorney General negotiated a plea agreement, which is the exclusive remit of the DPP. Why did the former Attorney General enter into an agreement with a potential witness in a serious criminal matter involving a political opponent, which requires the parties to conceal evidence from Parliament? and a detailed account of all funds paid to Mr. Nelson and his proxies, servants or agents, including his attorneys at law, arising out of the indemnity agreement, together with appropriate vouching and justification, including legal fees, fines, outstanding fees, taxes, or liens paid on his behalf. On October 10th, Attorney General Reginald Amor said in a media statement that the discontinuance of the court matter is also surprising, having regard to the fact that Mr. Nelson entered into a plea agreement with the DPP to give evidence against attorneys Mr. Ram Logan and Mr. Ramdeen in exchange for a recommendation by the DPP to the High Court that Mr. Nelson be given a non-custodial sentence. Attorney General Amor had also said that Mr. Nelson has not to date recanted any admission of wrongdoing he made in the criminal proceedings. Jule Brown, TV6 News.
The U.S. government has provided U.S. $2 million in recovery aid to Cuba in light of the recent passage of Hurricane Ian.
The Biden administration will provide $2 million to Cuba for emergency relief efforts following Hurricane Ian, the State Department said. The communist government of Cuba made a rare request for aid from Washington in September after Hurricane Ian knocked out power to the entire island of 11 million people, killed 3 people, and drove thousands from their homes. The United States will work with independent organizations to provide the aid. Price said that they stand with the Cuban people as they work to recover from the disaster. U.S. President Joe Biden has promised to re-engage with Cuba after years of tensions between Havana and Washington, but Cuba's crackdown following widespread protest on the island last July led instead to sanctions on Cuban officials. Cuba's Foreign Minister, Bruno Rodriguez, said on Twitter that his country appreciates humanitarian assistance offered by the U.S. This material contribution that is worth $2 million channeled through the International Federation of Red Cross will aid up to Cuba's recovery efforts in support of the victims of the ravages caused by Hurricane Ian, Rodriguez noted.
Tourism stakeholders in the Bahamas are warning of the devastating impact crime can have on the Federation's top industry. More in this ZNS News item with Cleopatra Murphy.
Despite surging crime in the country that has homicides for the year already surpassing the 100 mark, Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis says he does not expect it will impact tourism. It's a concern President of the Bahamas Hotel and Tourism Association, Robert Sands, expressed after the U.S. State Department updated its travel advisory last week, urging Americans to exercise caution due to crime in the country.
Because it is a contained issue that we have with crime, and hopefully we are dealing with it effectively. Hence, I don't think you'll see any downturn in tourism because of that.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation, the Honorable Chester Cooper, responded to the BHTA President's concern, noting that any crime is bad for the country and tourism, and all Bahamians must make an effort to manage it.
A crime against a Bahamian is horrific. A crime against a tourist is simply a stupid thing to do. In effect, what we would be doing is biting the hand that feeds us. I said during the budget debate, 60 cents out of every dollar that we get comes from tourism.
Cooper says it's mind-boggling that anyone would want to hurt the industry so crucial to the country's economy.
I'm calling on Bahamians everywhere to assist the police, assist the Ministry of National Security in terms of managing and curtailing and the reporting of criminal elements in our community. I am satisfied, though, that in relation to the travel advisory itself, that it does not escalate the alarm, so to speak, for travelers to the Bahamas.
Further, the minister says the Level 2 travel advisory that has not been escalated refers to crime on New Providence and Paradise Island. For the Bahamas Tonight, I'm Cleopatra Murphy.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.